It's Molly here with Ask Me Anything. We're covering topics that we might find challenging to talk about. And today, I am delighted that our topic is one likely most of us have had some personal experience, and it's on the well being of our cherished young people and how to have conversations with them when they're in times of struggle. And it can be really heart wrenching when we want to help, but we aren't really sure how. So I'm joined by the inspiring Jason Reid, who has, oh gosh, also been a previous guest on the Say It Skillfully podcast and a career spanning over 30 years, over 24 ventures. He is a sought after CEO coach who believes his failures are what shaped his success. And following the loss of his 14-year-old son to suicide in 2018, Jason channeled his experience into his youth mental health nonprofit called Tell My Story. And it's dedicated to empowering parents and teens to support and nurture youth mental well-being. So Jason, thank you so much for joining me.
Molly, thanks for having me. I always look forward to chatting with you. Thank you.
Yeah, so before we get into the topic of how to actually chat and not chat with our young people, maybe a few thoughts on how you've been successful, what you've learned about being successful.
Well, I mean, success is always, varying degrees of success. I've done pretty well in the businesses we own. We employ about 3,000 people across 4 different brands in our core companies. And I will tell you that, you and I were just chatting about this before, is, that's not without a lot of failures and millions of dollars lost. I think I've failed at somewhere around 25 to 30 different companies we've started up and tried to get going and thought they'd be successful and had to shut down. And those, I can't even add up all the money that's probably been lost along the way. But I've learned most from my failures more than any of the successes I've had, right? Because the successes we have today are because of the failures I had in the past. I mean, all the lessons that I've learned, and we're still learning them. I mean, we're still learning them.
Yeah. I just a real note out to everyone listening. And I know I don't wish struggles on people, but folks, that is the path to success. And leaning into the discomfort, that's where the growth is. I know it can feel great to kind of feel like you're on top of the mountain, which we all want to do at some point, but continuing to push it and embracing when it doesn't go well as it's needing to happen. I just want to encourage folks to be good with that, right? And I know it's not how we're raised, because you want to get A's, you want to be right all the time, but that's really not how life works.
Well, and not giving up, right? It's like going, a lot of people, they have the failure and then they go, well, this just isn't for me, I should just give up. As opposed to looking at this going, okay, and then the next time I do something like this, I'm going to do it differently. And that's how entrepreneurs who fail, and every one of us fails at some point or another as an entrepreneur. The ones who succeed in the long run are the ones who go, okay, I'm just going to keep going. I'm not going to let this get to me. I'm not going to be the person who wallows in my own misery around it. I'm just going to get up and get back on that bike.
Yeah, there's a huge doggedness about that. Okay, so let's jump in. I think this topic, it's very personal for me. I had a youth relative who, just want to help, and you want to help them figure out their path. So just thoughts, Jason, if people see that, how can they open a door to a conversation?
Yeah, well, so everybody understands, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm a guy who has spent the last 7 years after the loss of my son digging into the whole idea of mental health with kids, and helping parents understand what it looks like and how to have the conversations. Because when you look at where we're at, there are not enough psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, therapists, clinics, hospitals. When I get calls all the time because people know what I do here, and friends will say, what am I going to do with my kids? And they have to go to the hospital that night, and they get there at 7 o'clock at night, and it's 3 o'clock in the morning before they get seen by a psychiatrist. And not because the psychiatrist is sitting around doing nothing, because there are that many kids in the hospital. So what I like to tell parents is that you have to own your kids' mental health the way you own their physical health, because you can't count on there being enough therapists out there. And then, just like any occupation, they're not all great. So we all have to become better at communicating with our kids. And I get it's unfair, and I get the fact that you're already busy, you're already overwhelmed yourself, and it's a little unfair because I can guarantee you I'm 58. My dad didn't have these conversations with me when I was 14 or 12. Didn't have to. We didn't live in the same world. So
Yeah. Well, we talked a bit before also to just acknowledge it's a really complex landscape for parents to parent.
yeah.
And it's, I think acknowledging, we talked about the economy with jobs. We'll talk a little bit about AI technology. There's so many forces that are acting upon kids. I mean, to be honest, I think it's really hard to be a kid. It's really hard to be a parent.
Well, I think we make the mistake sometimes that we say, well, when I was a kid, I just pulled myself up and got going again, and there's no big deal. It's a different world. And the way I like to describe it is, when I was 12, 13 years of age and the phone rang, it was attached to the wall. And my father answered it. And he'd stand there, stare at me while I said, okay, I'll talk to you at school tomorrow. And that was it. Right. And they didn't have these things. And I didn't know what that was. And then I didn't watch the news and I didn't care. And getting to college wasn't a hard thing and it wasn't expensive and there wasn't all this pressure. And now you look at where we live today and kids have access to everything in the world at their fingertips. You have 8, 9, 10-year-old kids who understand there's wars with Russia and Ukraine, and there's a challenge with China and Taiwan, and what's going on in the Middle East. And then if that doesn't happen, well, don't worry about it because in 10 years, global warming is going to kill us all anyway, or climate change is going to kill us all. I get confused all the time, but that's a lot for that little brain to worry about, right? Yeah. And then they've got to worry about getting into a college, which is like you've got to get into a good school now. You've got to be like a 4.78, whatever the hell it is, kid with all these extracurricular activities to even be thought of getting into a good school. And then you get the pleasure of paying $100,000 a year to go to that really good school to get a job that maybe you're not going to have when you graduate. So it's challenging and so much pressure that, it's just a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's say with the reality, a few thoughts, let's say parents may not yet have the conversation. They haven't delved into it with their kids. Thoughts on how you open doors and, it's a really fine line. And I think, we talked about this. You don't want to enable kids to be soft, but you don't want to overpush the kids who really do need extra support.
Yeah, you got to know who your kid is. You've got to understand, like, I always tell this example of, I was talking to you about my son, my oldest, Derek, when he was 18, he dropped out of school in November, December. And then he went to another school in January and dropped out in March. And he had turned 18 in January. And I said, well, buddy, I guess this is it. You go find a place to live and go find yourself a job and go figure out what you can do with your life because my responsibilities here are done. I'll pay for your phone and your health care and you're not going to school, figure it out. I could do that with Derek because Derek's like me. I left home when I was 17 and I'll figure it out. My other kids, no way. My daughter, loved her to death. If I did that to her, it would crush her. She's just not capable of getting along that way in the world. So I have to support her differently. And you have to know your kids. Now, if we go back and say, how do you even start a conversation, right? Because that's probably more important right now. And by the way, Derek turned out just good. He's fine. He's very successful.
Of course.
But if you take a look at, how do you even start a conversation with younger kids? Because I think that's important to know where they are. I think you have to recognize right off the bat that you can't talk to them like you talk to an adult. And what I like to tell parents is that they don't want you to look them in the eye when they talk to them. Like that's the hardest thing for them. Like it intimidates the hell out of your kid. You can say, I don't intimidate my kids. I'm like, yes, you do. They don't want to disappoint you. They're afraid. And you looking in the eye is like the worst thing on the planet. So you got to find a way that you want to talk. Like you ever notice, like when you're driving the car, they're going to talk to you because they know that you can't look them in the eye. But you'd be like, what the hell? What? So they can tell you stuff and they're not afraid. And they're not always going to talk to you when you want to talk to them. Like the one thing I don't want you to do is, have this conversation. We have this conversation today and you rush home and go into the room and go, we need to talk about your mental health. boy, that's going to not get the right reception, right? It's on their terms. It's not on your terms, and it's inconvenient. It's when they want to open up to you, they're going to open up to you, but you have to create an environment where they feel safe to do so. And that might be going for a walk. That might be doing an activity. That might be in the car, driving home or driving wherever. But if you can't force them to talk, and you all know that, you're not going to force any kid to talk to you when they don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
So it's creating a safe environment.
Yeah. And there is no secret sauce to that. And
I wish there was.
yeah, I know everyone wishes there was. A little thought on the devices, how to talk about, what makes sense. I think there's the social media pressures. I mean, frankly, I can see, in one side of me is like, look at no social media for young people, period. I'm just curious on your thoughts, how you've talked to parents about that.
Well, I don't believe that kids 11, 12 years of age should have a phone with complete access to the internet and social media and everything else. Flip phones are fine. I believe that it's hard enough on adults to deal with all the pressure of social media. I also believe that where it was really bad back in 2007 when Facebook first came out, I think it was 2007 or something like that. And then, it's now 2025, and we've all gotten used to Instagram and Facebook. And I think kids realize now better than they did before that when they see someone out there acting like the world is great, their life's not that great. Kids are smart, so they're better about that. But what we're now stuck in this world of is doom scrolling through Instagram reels and TikTok reels and all this junk that just is mind numbing, that they do for hours and hours and hours and hours, and you get no productivity out of it. And parents do for hours and hours and hours, get no productivity out of it. That's the stuff that actually can be just as bad, right? Because you're not actually accomplishing anything. You're not actually doing anything. I would say playing a video game is better than doom scrolling, and I'm not a huge video game fan.
Yeah.
So
how might people actually raise that topic? And you want to do that without heavy-handedness, but I think I had family members who, when they were older, said, we really wish someone had put some boundaries on us because it's addicting.
It's addicting. I think doom scrolling is as addictive as caffeine or nicotine or anything like that. It's the dopamine. It's you know better than I do. Is the dopamine hit you get from looking at something that's interesting, exciting. Yeah. It's. I mean, like we just finished a movie called Shift, which I'm looking forward to sharing with you on the podcast. But I interviewed 12 kids who were out there and doing a sport, doing art, doing theater, doing something that gets them out of bed every day and they're excited about. And that's how they personally turned around their own mental health, by saying, hey, I'm really into tennis. I'm really into skateboarding. I'm really into art. I'm really into writing. And when they lean into this activity, they lean into something that's not school and not just everyday life. And they're like, they feel they have a purpose to get up in the morning. And everybody needs a purpose. And when you don't have a purpose outside of your day-to-day, I mean, something that is not just going to school, going to work, something that you go, I'm really passionate about something. But let's face it, most people are not passionate about work. And most kids are not passionate about school. Yeah. But when you find your passion, that can have just the most amazing effect on your mental health.
Yeah. One note, and this is a personal experience, sometimes your kids might be interested in something you're not interested in, or you don't think they should be interested in. And a word of caution to kind of pop the balloon or deflate someone by you having your value judgment that the XYZ activity they want to do, you don't think they should do. And I just, from personal experience, I would just encourage folks to be really open-minded. And if you can raise a child who has a sense of self, who's kind, and is interested in anything, that you have hit the lottery. And sometimes that can be hard because we don't think it's right. The adult doesn't think it's right. But, Jason, to what you said, trying to find, I think that's hard when, what are you interested in? Nothing. Okay, well, let's think about this. It can't be nothing. How do we kind of encourage them? Because that can be a really easy defense mechanism. Oh, there's nothing I'm interested in, right? And that's hard.
Yep. And sometimes we're doing it from a place of what we think is helpful, right? I'll give you just a really simple example. Kyle, who is my 23-year-old, he's been into his number one passion in life is making YouTube videos. He wants to be a YouTuber like nobody else is tomorrow. And he has been at this for 7 or 8 years now. And I got to tell you, his stuff's funny and I really enjoy it. But it's so hard to build an audience. It's not like the beginning days. There's so much out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say, Kyle, there's easier ways to spend your time, buddy, because you're never going to be this famous guy on YouTube because there's too many people doing the same stuff. But I bite my tongue and I encourage him because it's what he cares about. And at the end of the day, I'm not sure he cares if he's ever going to be a successful YouTuber or not. He just enjoys putting out the content, and that's his art. And that's awesome. And I've always taken it, I don't care what they want to go do. I'll just let them do it. And if they do it for a while and they don't want to do it and they want to do something else, great. Just find your passion. You might have to go through 8 or 10 things with them. You might waste a bunch of money where you help them out, right? I remember my daughter wanted to bake cakes and I'm like, okay, I'll buy all this cake stuff. And then 3 months later, I'm like, there's no more cakes. And I have all this stuff.
Yeah. I think I think the energy of a parent coming across as I'm really trying to help you and not I'm doing this for me. And that's hard too, because so often it's easy to kind of channel, what we want on folks and just, not unlike in business relationships, helping come across as a partner, as a guide, as a cheerleader is huge. Jason, one thing that I was overwhelmed with your focus on work ethic for your kids. So would you share with our listeners this? Because this was really, really interesting to me.
Well, I think I have a different approach to parenting. And, Ryan aside, my kids have all turned out really, really well. Different. They're all different, right? But I never cared about their grades. As long as they're passing, I didn't care about their grades. Their mom probably cared a little bit more. Kim cared a little bit more about the grades than I did. I cared about really specifically, how hard they were working at something. Because in my life, how hard you work at something is, if you have a work ethic, it'll pay off. And I define work ethic differently. And I always had this battle with Kyle, for example, because he'd be like, well, I work really hard at my music or I work really hard at my YouTube videos. And I'm like, that's fantastic. A work ethic is working hard at something you don't want to work at and learning how to get that done. And all my kids had to work. We had a larger property, so I had them work in the yards from the time they were 10 on. Like if summertime, you're 10, I'll find 10 hours worth of stuff for you to do in the yard. And 11, 12, 13, 14, and you're going to work in the yard every summer. And it was battles. It was the dinner date. My wife was not on board with this. Why do they have to do this? They have to do it. I'm not giving up. And I think the story you're referring to is the one with Kyle one time where I had him outside and his job for the summer is we have all these iceberg white roses, right? And they all die. You go clip the dead ones off, make sure it looks nice. And I would watch him from my office window and he would he'd clip a rose. He'd walk to the far side of the property where he kept his bottle of water. He'd have a sip of water. He'd walk back, clip another rose. And he did this all summer. I'm like, Kyle, this isn't working, buddy. And the next year he was turning 14. I guess that was his 13th summer. And he says, okay, what's my job this summer? I'm like, well, your job this summer, you're going to love this one, buddy. I bought you a large sledgehammer and a small sledgehammer. And here's a pile of rocks. He goes, what am I supposed to do with this? He goes, you're going to break those big rocks into small rocks. And you're going to do this for 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. What do you need the rocks for? I'm like, oh, I don't need the rocks. Well, why am I doing this? Because you need to learn how to work. And your bottle of water is staying right here. And he did that all summer. Now you could say, well, gee, you're really mean. I'm like, I wanted to teach my kids really valuable lessons about having to work at something you don't want to work at. And what it taught them is by the time they were 16, they all got their driver's license right on their 16th birthday, ran out of the house and got a job. So they never had to work for me again. And it was great. They all got, they all went out, got their jobs when they were 16. They had to buy a car on their own by the time they were 18. They all did that. And then you look fast forward to now and they all work in one of my companies. They all work for me somewhere and they're all doing amazing. And they are great. I mean, I always get compliments on how hard they work and how great they are. But that wasn't a natural thing. That was a battle because we naturally don't want to have to do things we don't want to do. But in life and in work, we all have to do things we don't want to do. So if we don't teach them that, then when are they going to learn it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think when we talked also this, it's as a parent, it's really hard for your kids failing or struggling. And it can be really tempting to swoop in and save them, and then the backfire of that, when we learn and we pick ourselves up, we dust ourselves off and we figure it out, that's what builds confidence. And so there's that really fine line of how do I really, as painful as it is to see them struggle and to not do so well, to let them go. And
Yeah.
I'm just wondering how, it does sound like that was hard for you. I guess your wife was basically, you were able to like Heisman her and say, look, I've got this.
Well, I mean, she, we pick our battles. But I think it's also important for everybody to know, like, it sounds like, okay, you're a really terrible, hard parent. Like, yes and no on certain things. I'm also a very loving parent, spent a lot of time with my kids, traveled. I always had one-on-one trips with them every year. Even, Ryan, when he passed, was kind enough to write a letter about how much he appreciated our relationship. So it's teaching. I think what I'm trying to say here is that you still have to be a parent, right? I didn't see the Ryan stuff coming. I didn't realize how much he was suffering. I wish I did, of course, but I didn't. But I don't think it would have changed the fact that I was going to teach him how to work. I wasn't going to, if I knew at 14 how much he was struggling, I wouldn't have just said, okay, it's okay to sit in your room and do nothing. That's not the answer. The answer is to get you to therapy. Let's get you to a doctor, and let's get you out in the world doing things. Let's find what you're really passionate about that we haven't found yet. Let's get you some reason to wake up in the morning. Yeah. And that's really the answer. And I think that's the struggle sometimes with parents when they see kids that are struggling. It's going, I just need to let them be. And maybe you do to a certain point, right? But also help them find something that gets them going. Like that's get them to get, what is it they could be passionate about? What is it going to get them out of bed in the morning? I mean, honestly, pets work too. You have a kid who's really suffering, and get them a dog, get them responsible. They respond. If they want a dog, get them a dog. They're responsible for that dog. Make them look after that dog. They have a reason they have to get up in the morning, take that dog for a walk. These are the things that help create different pathways in our brains that get us going, okay, I can get out of this rut I'm in, right? Yeah. It's the neural pathways we have, and I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but we get in these ruts in our brains. We get our ruts in our thought patterns, and that's what a lot of times depression can be. We got to get you out of the rut into a different path. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I have another friend, her son, great kid, but just, school wasn't for him. And, came back, she says, you're back, and this is the deal. You need to work full time. And she was like, you're home, it's okay. But she sent him out, and he got a job, and he's working full time, which is great. Yeah. To your point, he's out in the world, he's getting out there, and he's taking positive steps, which I think does build confidence and this sense of self. Jason, one topic we want to just touch on is this artificial intelligence, because I know you have some very big thoughts on this, and I know a lot of us are babies figuring it out, and now we have the kids coming up, and just curious your thoughts on parents and how they might think about this with their kids.
Well, we're going to start a series called Artificial Kids, Raising Children in the World of AI. And it'll be a YouTube series. I was going to do a documentary film and just a full film on it, but I realized that it changes so fast that by the time I got the film done, it won't be relevant anymore. So we're going to start in YouTube clips. But the stuff that concerns me is, when you can push a button and take the easy path, then what's that really doing? So, I was telling you, Molly, I've written 7 books, and I tell people I've written 7 books and I've sold 8 because no one buys my books. And that's perfectly fine, right? Because what I learned writing those books is so important to me in my development and the thought process of how to write a book. You learn a lot about how to organize yourself, how to get your thoughts on the paper. You've written books, and it's a really amazing experience. It's challenging. Yeah. I'm also, I'm a songwriter. We have a couple of albums up on BMG Music. You can get them off the website, tellmystory.org. They're mental health albums for kids and adults. But the process of writing those songs, the process of saying, okay, what word goes next, and why is that word going there, and where's the hook come in? Where's the chorus, and how are we going to make that sound? And people are going to want to listen to this. And then I hear friends will have, hey, listen to the song my son wrote or my daughter wrote. I'm like, oh, great. And I get this song on, and it's an AI generated song where they prompted a couple of words to go, write me a song that talks about this. And then someone goes, look at the song they wrote. I'm like, it's not the same, guys. That was a 7-minute experience, right? That's not the same as being a songwriter. That's not the same as actually having to compose the music. And the same thing with any kind of art. When you push a button, you make a picture. That's not the same as drawing. That's not the same as painting. And those skills that we learn from having to do those things, those skills you learn from having to go through the challenges of learning, and it's what makes you a better human being. And we're going to be possibly, taking that away from our kids by letting them take the easy button.
Yeah.
And then the other one that you and I talked about is just the whole idea of AI chatbots. And, if you're not paying attention to AI, I really encourage you to pay attention to AI, especially with your kids. The idea that kids are using AI chatbots as their best friend or their girlfriend or their confidant, and not having real communication, real conversations with you, with their friends, with people, is scary. Because an AI girlfriend's only going to say the greatest things about you. When you're a 10, 11-year-old boy who's scared of girls, and that AI girlfriend says, you're the best thing on the planet, and I really love you, and you're so amazing. Man, I've been married for 33 years. That's not how the world works.
No. Yeah. I mean, a theme out of this is it's just so striking, and it's fabulous to have technology that can really be put to better use. So, I mean, I think you and I both technology savvy, we like it. But that notion of the human connection and preserving that ability for people to learn to connect human to human, that's something that we really, we as adults want to keep doing, whether it's in the workplace, but for sure for our young people, to help them with this skill. And it is a skill.
Communication is the most face-to-face communication is to be the most important skill any of us have. And that's something we have to fight to preserve.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
and I think this teaching of the kids, and it's this whole underpin Say It Skillfully, because everyone does have a voice, but not everyone has actually found how to use theirs, right, in a way that they can do so confidently and clearly and make the impact that they want. And I do want to encourage parents that shared learning journey, and I think it can feel like we're supposed to have the answers, but being there and helping pose questions, and being alongside with children in their journey, I think is really great. Jason, how can people find out more about the movie? I know we're going to dive deeper into it, but give a little.
So tellmystory.org has all of our stuff. It has my TEDx talks and my Goldcast talk. It has a link to Tell My Story, the movie that's up on Amazon Prime. It has the trailer to What I Wish My Parents Knew and the trailer to Shift. Those are both films that we put into schools. So if you want to have us come out to your school, please go on the website and there's a little link, and Dana will get back to you and we'll set that all up. There's no cost of this. I cover the cost of putting all this in the schools and making sure these programs exist. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And we're just here trying to give you tools to be able to talk to your kids. You can get, these Tell My Story card decks on there that we built for conversation starters with kids, which is done really well. So all I want to do is help everybody find ways to have the conversations that save their kids and make them better.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason. And I am sorry for the tragedy that you and your family endured. And I am so grateful for how you've turned that into something to really help serve and help people and children all around the world. So obviously I'm here cheering for you. Anything I can do to be helpful please let me know. Folks will stay tuned in the new year. Jason will join me on the podcast for a full feature, and we'll really dive deep into this. So if you have questions, comments, please reach out to me directly, and look forward. And I wish those folks in the States a happy Thanksgiving next week. You all take good care. Thank you.
Thank you, Molly.
Ciao, ciao. Bye.